Good morning, grade 5 in sunny Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. My name is Alistair Humphreys. I'm the author of the book you've been reading, The Boy Who Biked the World. Thank you so much for reading my book and for sending me some great questions, and also for just reminding me of the lovely, excuse me, just dying in the video. Thank you for reminding me of the lovely time I had when I was in Dar es Salaam as I was cycling around the world. The book you've read about the young boy Tom was actually the adventure that I had when I spent 4 years cycling around the world. And I spent a couple of weeks in Dar es Salaam giving talks at international schools a bit before you were there, sadly. So thank you. You sent me some great questions. It is a freezing, windy morning in England today, so it's quite different for you guys, I'm imagining. You've asked some great questions. Here we go. What inspired you to write the book? Well, partly, as I just mentioned, I gave lots of talks at international schools while I was cycling around the world. I trained to be a teacher if I was going to get a proper job, and giving talks to hundreds of schools around the world made me just want to tell the story to young people in a book as well. I was inspired to write books by reading so many books. That's what got me really interested in travel, a love of reading. So loving reading books, having visited loads of schools, it just kind of made sense to me to try and put those stories together and turn it into a book. How many explorations have you been on? Gosh. Well, it's hard to say what an exploration is. I mean, just this week we're in a coronavirus lockdown in Britain at the moment, so we can't go very far. But just this week I found just a few kilometres from my house a small little woodland I'd never been to before, and it was exciting to go somewhere I'd never been, even though it was really close to home. So that is an exploration of a sort. But in terms of big adventures, the first massive one I did was spending 4 years cycling around the world. Since then I've walked across India. I wrote a book about that. I walked across the empty quarter desert, pulling a large cart. If you search on YouTube for Into the Empty Quarter, you could watch the film of that trip. I walked through Spain playing my violin. Again, I've done a book and a film on YouTube called My Midsummer Morning, if you want to watch something very silly, very bad violin playing skills. I've rowed across the Atlantic Ocean, so I've done quite a few big adventures. But what excites me is all the little local ones you can find wherever you live. I mean, think of where you guys are living now. It excites me so much to think of the places just within a few miles of your home that I would love to be able to explore. So make the most of exploring close to home. How did you feel about the books you wrote? Wow. Well, before you can put a book out into the world, you have to be happy enough with it to be able to say to the world, here is a book, I've written it and I think it's as good as I can be. So you have to be happy with them when you send them out into the world. But also I think it's natural, or certainly it's for me, to never be that happy, to always think, after I've done a book, think, oh, maybe I should have made it better, oh, maybe I should have made it better. So I never read my books again after I've printed them, in case they're just too embarrassing. But I think at the time you press go, you feel proud of them. How long does it take you to write a book? Roughly, I try and write one book a year. That's my goals. I think I'm up to about 13 books in 14 years. I failed in 2020, coronavirus failed me on that year. But generally it's a book a year, and what that involves is a lot of time sitting, you will know, doing your homework. You spend a lot of time with a blank piece of paper, don't you, going, I can't do it, it's too hard, and then you make all sorts of excuses to go and have a look in the fridge and have a snack and maybe go and play outside and do a few things, and you go, and eventually at some point you think, right, I've just got to get on with this. And so I get on with it and I sit and I write my book. And when you first write a book, it's rubbish, it's terrible. And that's when the hard work begins of then going through everything you've written and redoing it, editing it, changing it, making it better, making bits shorter, making bits longer, polishing it. And then you spend weeks and weeks checking for spelling mistakes, and yeah, it ends up taking me 1 year a book. which is slower than some authors and quicker than other authors. What age did you get inspired to be an author? Was I like Tom in the book? I wasn't really like Tom, because Tom's quite a brave, adventurous young fellow, and I really wasn't. I was just a really ordinary kid at school. I wasn't the cleverest or the naughtiest or the fastest or the bravest. I was just normal, so completely and utterly normal. So if you looked around your class privately in your head and just thought to yourself, which kid in my class is the least likely to go and spend 4 years cycling around the world? That would have been me. That's very adventurous. But what did inspire me was reading books and reading the stories of crazy adventurers, men and women who'd done mad things, and they just excited me. It made me think, oh, I'm going to sneeze, you ready? Ah. Oh, I hate it when the sneeze just gets stuck. It's stuck right in my head. No, sneeze has gone away, sorry. Yeah, I used to love reading books of mad men and women who'd done all sorts of crazy adventures, and reading them made me think, maybe I should try and do something exciting and different with my life. And actually, more book suggestions. I've written a book called Great Adventurers, which is a book for children about all my adventure heroes who inspired me to adventure. It's a big book full of pictures. Out of all the countries you went to, which was the hardest to leave? Well, seeing as I'm freezing now in the south of England, and it's probably about 10 degrees, I would say trying to survive at minus 40 degrees in Siberia was very, very cold indeed. I need my special stylish hood. I don't think you need this very often in Tanzania, do you? A big hood like this. Yeah, I'll go for minus 40 degrees in winter in Siberia. That looks stupid. How much time did you take to write the book? 1 year. Did writing remind you of your journeys and experiences and adventure as an adventurer? Yeah, it's amazing when you come to write the book. The first thing I do is I sit down and I go back to my diaries. When I'm on an adventure, I write a diary in my tent every day to help me remember things. Partly for book writing, partly just because you're a bit bored and lonely on your own, and partly so hopefully I'll remember some things when I'm an old man. And even older man. Look how grey my beard's getting. I'm getting an old man. Yeah, so I write my diaries, and then when I start writing a book, the first thing I do is type up the whole diary, and that brings back so many memories of my adventures, which is a wonderful thing, because I also give a lot of talks about adventures, and the problem with those is you end up telling the same 10 stories over and over and over, and seeing the same 20 photographs over and over and over, and that really simplifies the adventures so that you kind of forget all of the details of it. So a book's really good for that. How old were you when you wrote the first book? I cycled around the world from 24 to 29. I think my first book was when I was 31, I think my first book was. Do you still go on any other journeys? Absolutely. I will hopefully be going on journeys, large or small, forever and ever. It fills me with so much happiness and joy, and teaches me about the world and teaches me about myself. And the world is big. There's a lot still to do. Questions about a writer. Where did you learn to write like this? Well, that's either a compliment or an insult. It's either like, wow, where did you learn to write like this? Or, where did you learn to write like this? Asked by some child who hates the book. I learned to write only by reading. I did English at school, which is really important, but I didn't do it at university. So the way I've learned to write is just by reading. And I think that's the best way you can learn, not only about being a writer, but about pretty much anything else in life. Just read. Why did you decide to write about your adventures in a non-fiction book for children? I've already answered that one really. It was because I gave talks to so many schools, and I realised that children enjoyed these stories of adventures, so I thought I'd put them down into a book. Why just write books for adults? The kids are much more interesting than adults. Adults are old and boring and talk about things like pensions and their knees hurting, whereas children are still wild and exciting and up for adventures. So I think at heart I'm still more of a child. Why did you choose a 10-year-old boy? Well, it's interesting you say, why did I choose a 10-year-old boy? Because I'm guessing you who asked that are 10. because I didn't actually say how old Tom was, and what I deliberately tried to do was not to mention his age, but to try to write in a way so that if you read the book, you think Tom is your age. That's what I was hoping, so that it was just a child of any age would read the book and think, oh, I can relate to Tom, he sounds similar to me. So he was a young boy because I wanted him just to connect with young children who might be reading it of any age. Have you been to Dar es Salaam? Yes! Oh, I spent, gosh, about a month cycling through Tanzania. I came in down from Kenya, so camping beneath the Kilimanjaro, looking up, and it's amazing to think to get from your front door in England to suddenly see a famous thing like Kilimanjaro, the beautiful coastline around Dar es Salaam, and then from there I cycled inland towards Malawi, through game parks and the wildlife, and I was also in Tanzania for the Football World Cup, so going to little cafes in the back streets of Dar es Salaam, finding places that were showing the football, which is brilliant. Yeah, really brilliant. How do you decide where to add all the funny text? Well, once you've written the book, then comes the stage of starting to lay it out, when you get a designer in who tries to put the pictures in and the cartoony bits and the handwritten bits, and to try and spread those out so that they just fit quite nicely. But something like that comes quite late in the day. Oh, that was the final question. Well, thank you very much, grade 5. They were fantastic questions. And look, the sun has come out. It's a beautiful early spring day here in England. Good luck with all of your adventures, and please keep reading, and thanks so much for reading my book. I really appreciate it. Bye bye.